Yeah, the whole thing. They should give us the refund. Yeah, exactly. You can't. What are you talking about? No, it's the Mochet is Seifer. Who has to pay? That's it. We're going to see 1 second. See if the Mochet is. I think the Mochet got to pay. Okay, ready? Work. I thought you know you hit him for lunch. I told me we are on page test on the top, right after the two dots, third line, third word. So we learned the following: places where they use a big measuring, so in the case a small one, in the case a big one. In a place where they even off the measure, okay, you're not allowed to pile up the measure. A place where you pile up the measure, you're not allowed to even off the measure. And now the following simon is all the brices that we're going to talk about in the next all this page. Okay, it goes back to front actually. They go two out of order. Simon, okay, agar demin velistra shlosha velistra shlosha ve'eser nefesh mishkalos v'machak ava lo tatzer lo yasem. Where's the source that once the custom is to pile up, is to leave a little hill on top of the measure that you don't even off, and that's what even if the buyer is mochel, you're not allowed to do it. Obviously, you can't cheat the buyer, but even if the buyer agrees to even it off for the places to pile it up, you're not allowed to even it off. And further, nor can you if the minhag is to even it off, you're not allowed to pile it up, even if the seller agrees. What's the reason? Talmud Lomar Eifa Shlema, because the pasuk says you have to have a perfect measuring. Okay. And therefore, what? Regardless, once that's the minhag, that's what you have to do. And the reason is why, because you can't have other people learn from you. They're going to think they're going to do it. They're going to see you doing it, think that's the custom, and they're going to do it even without getting permission from the buyer or seller, respectively. They're going to do the wrong thing.
How can Hashem expect a perfect measure from any of us?
Oh, so that's not what that means. Here, that's not what that means. We're going to see. First of all, we make a measurement that's normal. But remember, the truth is, that the seller always gives a little bit and a little more graciously to the buyer. It's true. We'll see. But you're right. But also, it's not that we can't do something. We do what the norm is, what a person measures with. Here, and it's famous.
And that's called perfect.
It's perfect means not cheating. Not cheating. Now you have to know that in general, the Torah did work on human beings, and it's famous. Here. So one of the ways to learn, why is it tefach? Because we got a hand. Everybody got a hand. You can measure with a hand. I was told, I don't know if it's true. I was told by Feinstein when he was working out his measurements, he got the yeshiva guys up and he took the hands to measure them. So we'll see. Okay, but anyway, but yes, good. But
what word in Hebrew would we use for perfect?
Shalom.
Shalom. So
Shalom is the perfect, complete. Yeah, complete. Okay. Complete, perfect. Yeah, complete or perfect. There's other words also, but that's a simple word. How do I know? What about this? The guy says, listen, you know what? I will even it off, even though the custom in this town is to pile it up. But don't worry, I'm going to pay him. I'll give the buyer back change. Yeah, I'll give a discount. Or the buyer says, listen, I'll overfill the measure and let it pile up on top, but I'll pay more to the seller. How do you know? I don't let him do it. If that they go against me all the time, but no, because it says for shlema, but said that in addition to the word saying you have to have a complete or perfect measure and also a righteous one. A righteous one means what? That you cannot even do these things. Why? Because eventually people will come to lie. When people see them doing differently, they won't know that the person added or subtracted from the price. They'll think that's what they're doing. They'll end up doing the wrong thing. Maybe you generally have to be careful that people shouldn't see the wrong thing. The famous thing, I think it's from Rabbi, what is it? Zonafel, Diskin, one or the other. They learn. It's actually in the portion, but it talks about Aaron HaKohen. It says he did the way Hashem said when it came to with the lighting of the candles. Mm-hmm. So they explained that they had a step in front of the menorah. Why? Because the person lighting should have been level with the lamps that he's lighting. But so what happens? What if a person is short? So the Kohen is short, so he goes up on the step. But Aaron wasn't short, and he did right. He didn't have to go up on the step, but he made sure he's the step anyway, because that's the way Hashem wanted it, and he didn't change anything. Now, you have to worry about everybody. Okay, Tanarabana we learn. Malayin she'ein ma'aynin. Yeah. How do we know? How do we know? Okay, we have to see also about the what we talked about yesterday. It's the custom to that the seller overweighs the scale on the side of the buyer, and also what about measuring exactly? How do I know that we don't measure exactly without lowering the scale, no, overloading the scale to the benefit of the buyer? Huh? It means I don't know what it means like this here. If I'm the seller and I'm selling you a litra of meat, I have to add to, even though the scale shows I have a liter measure on this side, liter measure, a weight, and I put your meat that equals it. I have to put more meat on your side that goes down, let's say, a tapa. You understand why? So I have to overweigh your side of the scale. That's a thing. That's it. It really means I have to bias the scale. Really, even Stephen, even though I bias the scale, the weight, I put more meat on your side to do it. So how do I know that you're not allowed to measure exactly in a place where we lower the scale, and nor do the other way where we measure exactly that we don't lower Talmud Lumber, because it says Evan Shalema, you have to have a perfect stone, measuring stone. Yeah, weight. And how do we know that if the guy says what? In the same case, what? I will measure exactly in the place where they lowered, live close to him and Adamim, and don't worry. And I will pay him instead of giving him more weight on his side. I'll just pay him the money. Okay. And how do I know also? Did I skip part? One. How do I know not to lower when they do even not to even the lower? Because it says I have to have a perfect measure. Don't worry. What if the guy says, "Listen, I will measure exactly," even though the minhag here is to bias the scale for the buyer. We'll live close to it, but don't worry. But I'll give him a discount. Okay. Or I will lower the scale to the benefit of the buyer. The buyer says, "Oh, he'll lower it." Okay, and in a place where they usually measure regularly, and I'll pay the seller more. Change show me. How do we know we don't listen to the buyer or the seller respectively? Talmud Omer, it says, "Evan Shalema bit said that it has to be a perfect. Plus, you have to be righteous. You can't do it. These things lead to problems." Amar Rabbi Yehuda Misuri. He said the following. Now, if you the pasuk is like this. It's a very interesting pasuk. Let me pay. Evan Shlema, okay, b'tzedek yelecha. A person has to have a perfect measuring stone and a righteous one, and it says yelecha, it shall be for you. Efa Shlema b'tzedek yelecha. Okay, you have to have a perfect measure. There shall be for you. Etc. So now, but also the pasuk says, Lo yelecha beveisecha, you shall not have in your house ephah be'ephah, one big ephah and one small one. No, it's a big one for when you want to buy things, and a small one for when you want to sell them. Okay, etc. Yeah. So one is that. Yeah. So one is that. Yeah. Okay. Or an ephah gadol ketana. You want to? Yeah. Yeah.
From the salt in the water,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Each finger.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Right. So now, how do I know? So they darshan like this. Since it says lo yelecha, you shall not have in your home two ephahs, one big and one small. And lo yelecha beveisecha means to say what? If you have those things, you're not going to have money in there. He's not going to have money in his house. You know what I'm saying? If you do the wrong thing, he won't have money in his house. They will not be unto him. Matam, what's the reason? Why won't they? Why no? What does it mean? How do you dash it? I didn't read it right. So you won't have in your house. Why? Matam, what's the reason? Paper. Since you had a big measure and a small measure, to use the big one when you're buying and the small one you're selling. No, did I say the right way? I said yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What do you mean? You will not. The person will not have in his purse. Matam, okay, Evan won't have in his pouch. Evan, because he had a big stone and a small stone. Okay, that when he buys, he uses the big one. When he sells, he uses the small
But
one.
even if you never use it, just having possession of it.
That's coming up. You're ahead of it's true what you said, but that's not here. It's coming up in a minute in the Gemara. Okay, I will Evan Shlema, but rather what? You have to have the other Evan Shlema, but Tzedek. You have to have a perfect and righteous measuring stone. Then Yelacha, there will be to the person he'll have. Eighth of Shlema, but Tzedek. Person have a perfect volume measure. And a righteous one, Yelacha, you'll have. So no, it's Chas V'Shalom. If the person does the wrong thing, you won't have. If he'll do the right thing, you will have. Tana Rabbana, and in fact, we actually learned Maya Salam Yisasher. Okay, what do you mean? The Gemara says in Nida, what should a person do to become rich? He should do his business. He should do his giving and take, his buying and selling. He should do faithfully. That's the Gemara says in Nida. So that's the Rashbam brings here. A person wants to do good. They should do. They should deal honestly. When they had that big, everybody lost tons of money. So I was in America. So every place I went, then everybody wanted me to talk about that everybody lost all this money. So I spoke about this. I spoke about that the reaction should be we should be doubly careful to be honest in their business. That's the first thing. That's the first response. The first response about take care. No, I wasn't going for that. By the way, so I told everybody to do the things, to follow to be honest in their dealings. Okay, so now,
Madoff was the lesson that Hashem sent.
It's terrible. You don't want to do. We don't want to do those things. Okay, and you see the other way. You want to make money. Be honest. That's what it says. That's what it says. You do honest. You do business on it. You make money. You think that the guy thinks if he's going to be honest, not going to make money. I'll make money. I'll make the money. We learned the right. We learned the right. So when it said that you have to have a perfect stone and a righteous one, Yelachal, they'll be to you. Since the word is extra, because we already noticed it says don't do this. So this one you say don't have this kind, but rather this kind. You don't have to say don't do this one and yes have this one. Yes, it's extra. So Malame teach me so we make supervisors or inspectors for the weights. Okay, and that they give punishment. They punish people and whip them for having for having dishonest measures. Okay, but we do not set up supervisors or inspectors when it comes to prices. Why? Okay, the reason you don't have to. It's a pashut svar because if the guy overcharges, people are not going to buy. The Beinasiya Okima guarded me, but it happened in the house of the Exilarch, the Nasi in Babel, who is the equivalent of the Exilarch in the Reish Galusa in Babel, who was the counterpart of the Nasi in Eretz Israel. Okima guarded him, so they set up supervisors, inspectors, Lamidos Bein L'Shoim, both for measures, which we said yes, but they did it also for the prices. Amar le Shmuel Akarna, so Shmuel told Tana, Puk Tani, go out and teach the people. And to go teach the people of the house of the Exilarch, says, go tell them that we do set up we set up inspectors for measures, but we don't set up inspectors for prices. Nafak, so kind of went up. He didn't do what he said. He went to the base on us. He went to the house of the Exilarch, V'darshlu, and he taught them. He says, "Mamidim agadami bein lemidas bein l'sharmi." So we set up inspectors both for weights and measures, and also for prices. Amar le Shmuel. So Shmuel said, "They're kind of mashmach. What's your name?" This is karnis. His name's karnis. So karnis is the same word for like a horn or a jutting thing out. Typically, kind of anus. He cursed him. He said, "What? That a horn or a crust should grow in his eyes." Nafkali kind of he was punished, and that curse took place, and he got it on his eye. Okay, IB. Why was he teaching what he's teaching? Come on, but who did he hold like? He had a source. He says, "Okay, Amar Rabbi Chama, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak." Rabbi Yitzchak said, "Mamida agadam bein the minute bein the sham if they are amoim." He learned that he set up inspectors not only for measures, but also what? Better for measures, also for what? Also for prices. Why? Because they're liars. Because even though you're right that there is competition, the competition will naturally stamp out the people who price gouge. But the only thing is what? What are they going to do? They wait. They're going to do this. They will raise the price and tell people that they're giving a greater quantity when they're not. That they're cheap. People cheat. If you don't have inspectors on the price, the guy will charge a higher price, and tell the person he's giving him more, but he's not. He's giving the same amount and charging a higher price. Or they will do the other way. They'll cheat other ways. They will. They will put nice pieces on the top and bad ones
Like
on the
strawberries.
on the bottom. Yeah, yeah. They do it all the time. Tana Rabbanan, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Tana Rabbanan, we learned. Let's say a guy wanted to buy a litra. That was their quantity. I'm sorry, I actually printed out for myself the actual numbers in English, but I don't have it with me. Shokel a litra. So he measures a litra, a chatzi litra. If a guy wants to buy a half litra, shokel a chatzi, he weighs out a half litra. Okay, reveal litra, he wants a quarter of a litra. Shokel a reveal litra, he measures a quarter. So it seems very obvious. Michael Mashal, what's he telling me? Obviously, when the guy asks, well, that's what you measure out. He says the answer is no, but taknina mitkale adachi. So he teaches us to know that that's the way that we make the weight. So there are two ways to learn this. One way is that what? We only make half, a whole, half, and quarter, okay? But we don't make smaller than that. Less than a quarter we don't, because once you get down to less than a quarter of a litra, the guy can use a small weight and still tell you that it's a quarter when it's not. And the other ones, half, whole, and quarter, are easily discernible. Once you get to less than a quarter, it's easy to make a weight that's less than a quarter and still call it a quarter. That's one way to do it. So instead, you use coins. Anything less than a quarter litra, you use coins to measure that everybody can see. The other way is that we don't make measures other than half, quarter, whole, half, and quarter. And we don't make, for example, like thirds and these, because those are too easy to cheat. You understand? To mix up, as a half or a quarter attached. We don't. So those are two ways to learn. Okay, that's what we know. What if now the guy wants to buy 3/4 of a litra? So look, we just said we have a litra, a half litra, and a quarter litra. So what would you think? So you would think that so the merchant should put a half litra of stone and a litra stone, but and a quarter litra. But he's not allowed to do it because we're always afraid if you put two weights, one of them is going to fall off. We don't want more than one weight in the pan. So we don't let him put on the one hand we don't let him put a half and a quarter because we're afraid one's going to fall off. So now what's going to be? So the buyer's got a great idea. So the buyer says. He says, "Lo yomar." The buyer can't say to him, so here, what I want you to do is measure me a quarter litra, a quarter litra, and a quarter litra. Why? Because the guy's gonna have to push down the pan every time in his favor. He's gonna have three. So he's gonna give him three. Get 3 extra donuts instead of 1 extra donut per dozen. Just easy. You have to get extra. Okay, ala shoko. Rather, what do? Shoko litra. So what you do is you put a litra weight on one side, umeniach, and then the other side of the pan where you put the meat, revi a litra imabasa. But you stick a quarter weight, 1/4 weight. It's okay to put one weight in a pan. So if you put a quarter weight in the pan with the meat. So then, by definition, when it equals the litra weight, how much is he going to get? He's going to get 3/4 of a litra. Okay, Tana Rabbana, we learn. Nafak boznayim. Okay, now the weighing machine has three things. The scale has a middle, an upright, okay, that hangs either from the ceiling or comes up from the floor. And there's a bar that goes across where the pans are hanging from either end. That's the one that shifts. And there's a pin, which is called the nefesh, which is what it swivels on. That's in
English,
a fulcrum, yeah. But it's a pin, actually. It's a thing that sticks into that holds it, that rolls across, but it goes up and down. Now, so you have to understand there are several problems with the scale you have to realize. One, you have to have leeway. There has to be that the pans can go up and down freely. If they don't, they could get stuck, or even they could ricochet off the floor or off the ceiling, depending. And all those things can hurt the weight. Another problem is like this: you have to realize that the ratio of the string and of the crossbar really makes a very big difference. Why? Because the longer the crossbar, the less weight you need to make it move, and the shorter the crossbar, the shorter the crossbar, the more weight you need to make it move. So we want a certain ratio that's just right, that doesn't cheat. Number one, and number two, that's hard to cheat with, that it's not easy to cheat with, and number two, you want it so that there's not a physical problem with it. With the pan not being able to go down as far as it's supposed to go, or not down. Or if the pan goes up, it shouldn't ricochet. There's two problems. One, it just gets stuck, or it ricochets and also gives you a false reading because it causes a action and reaction and gives you a false reading. So the rabbis, right. So the rabbis, but we're learning also a ratio how we don't want the scales for different businesses. We don't want the crossbar more, even though in theory any size crossbar could give us an accurate reading, but we limit. We supervise and standardize for different businesses, different maximums and minimums for the size of the crossbar. Why? Because we want the sensitivity that is fitting for the thing that's being measured. So let's take a look.
Sell in larger measure, you need a bigger scale.
So here, take a look. Tell her about it. Nefesh was nine. So he said what? So the pin, okay, where you hold the the place where where you put the crossbar on, depending tluy ba'avir, okay, if it's hanging from the ceiling, in other words, if the upright is hanging from the ceiling, then it has to be 3 tefachs from the ceiling, like for the reasons I told you. But gavom and arts, or if it's coming up from the ground, if the upright is on the ground, it has to be 3 tefachim above the ground for the reasons we said. Okay, but kana o misna, and the crossbars and the string that holds the pan. You have a crossbar and 2 strings. Okay, he has two strings. The crossbar and crossbar and 2 strings. Okay, a crossbar and 2 strings that go down from the crossbar. They have to be shnei masar tvachim. They have to be 12. So each one. So the crossbar is 4, and each string is 4.
Minimums, right?
It's 4. No. Any string is no. Because, no, that's exactly the amount we want, because we don't want a longer bar. It's too sensitive. Now,
Are we allowed to use electronic scales now?
so the truth is you have to, all that stuff in modern times is a whole different point. Everybody's mocha. We all agree. We have all kinds of people. Today's a whole other story. We have our own norms and and acceptances, right? Now, so we didn't. You notice that the first scale, we don't know what business we're talking about. Later we'll clarify. But people are selling wool, and people are selling glass. Okay, so that when the weights are not that large for whatever reason. So you only need if the upright is hanging from the ceiling. So the pin where you hang the crossbar from only has to be 2 tefachs from the ceiling. Or in the other kind of scale that's coming up from the ground, it only has to be 2 tefachim above the ground. Okay, and the crossbar and the strings, tisha, that's to be 9 tefachim. 9 crossbar 3, and each of the strings 3. Right. Now you come down to people who are even smaller weights, okay, a shopkeeper or any household or any person doing business, okay, and they are using even smaller weights. Okay, so then the pin that you're hanging the crossbar from only has to be 1 tefach from the ceiling, or alternatively, it's tefach or 1 tefach above the ground. Okay, but okay, and the crossbar and the string, okay, shisha tvachim is only 6 tefachs, only 6 tvachim each. Only 6 tefachs altogether, which is 2, 2, and 2. And now when you get to the smallest amount, people you're talking about, let's say goldsmith. Okay, a goldsmith, they measure out very small amounts. So only when the pin from hanging from the ceiling only has to be 3 fingers, 3 thumb widths from the ceiling. Okay, and only from the ground it would have to be only 3 thumb widths from the ground. But kana misna shelo, and the crossbar and the string, any of these says actually don't know. He says actually don't know what it's supposed to. That's what the Brisa says. Okay, but I said the Michael says okay, we got it. But the first thing, the Brisa never told us what business was that scale for. The one that the total was 12. You never told me what it was. Okay, Amra Papa. Okay, digromi. That's talking about what people who measure out weights of metal. The metal and the metal. They sell iron. They sell glass, and they sell very hard. They're very high. They sell very large amounts of metal, up to like 100 litra at a time. I'm Rav Mani Bar Patish. In the same way we said what you're allowed that you're not allowed to have weights and measures that are not the proper measure, Chachamim and Tuma, the same rule will apply when it comes to Tuma. In other words, what's the point? Since it's forbidden to use these things, it's like a broken utensil. And remember, a thing that's not a keli doesn't become tame. So a thing, even though it is a keli, but since it's it's not the right measure. Since it's forbidden to use it, it's like broken, and therefore it can't become. Ironically, it can't become tame. So Gemara says, "Micah Mashmalan, what's the chiddush?" Everybody knows that. Tanina, we learned it. We learned it in Kalim. It says chut maznayim. We said that the string of the scale that's suspended from the ceiling shalchanvani v'shalbalabatim tefach. Okay, so we said that whether it's a householder or a storekeeper or shopkeeper, it's one tefach. So you see what it has to be the right amount to measure, like we learned before. Mar said, no, you're right. I did learn that, but kind of but he's coming to teach me what. Mani Bar Pati will tell me not only, he wants to tell me also what also the cross beam and the strings that hold the pans. Okay, you got to tell me also the right amount, and even if that doesn't have it, it's also Peloton. It didn't teach that in the Mishnah. He wants to tell me also there also that just like you're not allowed to use it, also what it's not tame. Tana Rabbanim, Enos Mishkalos. Okay, lo shall yeah. Enos Mishkalos shall bats. You can't make weights, okay, out of tin, below shall aver, nor out of lead, below shall gistron, or an amalgam of different metals. Okay, what's the reason why? Okay, because below shall shaman nor any other kinds of metals, and they're at least. Okay, why is that? Because those things usage when you would handle them, they would actually lose weight. So since they lose weight in their handling, you're not allowed to use them as measures. They're gonna just without you being dishonest. Yeah, without you being dishonest, they're going to deteriorate exactly, and you're not going to measure properly. Here. So they said, Osha you can make it from this hard stone, which doesn't disintegrate. Or glass. Glass also doesn't disintegrate. Learn ain't osin hamachak. Okay, Michelle. Now remember we learned that we have places where the custom is to what is to even off the measure. You sell a measure of a liter, and you scrape the top. Now you have to understand, but we have to be. The truth is, I have a few things to say about this, but I'm not going to say it. But I have a theory. I think it depends on the length of the smoother. But I'm not going to talk about it. But for other times, if you have kashas like I have, I think you'll solve it with this problem. What's the length? But in any case. The rules like this, they're going to use a spreader. So listen, some spreaders are heavy and some are light. And some of them, by definition, are going to take off more, let's say, grain.
More flexible.
More grain. Some will take, light ones will take off less grain, okay? And heavy ones will take off more grain. So the light one might not take off enough, okay? And you're cheating the seller. And a heavy one might take off too much, and you're cheating who? You're cheating the buyer. Yeah, you want to even Steven. So what's the rule? So therefore we learn this even or upper, okay, this eraser, this smoother, scraper, okay, shaldalas, you don't make it out of a gourd, okay, out of a pumpkin, it's too light, okay, and what? You're going to cheat the seller. But you don't make it out of metal either. Why? Because it's too heavy, and you're going to cheat the buyer. You make it from the wood of an olive tree, egos tree, shikma tree, eshkaro, these trees. That's the thing where it's not too heavy and not too light. It makes a fair judgment. We learned that in a brisa, you can't make the scraper, okay, you can't make with one side thick, which doesn't scrape well. Okay, it doesn't scrape well, and you're cheating the seller. And you shouldn't do it in one shot. Okay, why? Because when you do it in one shot, it's bad for the seller. It doesn't scrape enough. You have to look at, and it's better for the buyer. On the other hand, you can't do a little. As that's taking off too much, that's bad for the buyer and good for the seller. What do you do? So what you do is what? So you do it one time very lightly, or two times each time halfway. Okay, that's the way to do it in a fair way. Al kulan, okay, and now all of these types of wrongdoing that we mentioned before, Omar, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, Oilim Omar Oilim Lomar. This is a classic problem. He says, listen, I don't know whether I should teach this stuff or not teach this stuff. If I teach people what you're not allowed to do, I'm
You're gonna
teaching
do it.
all the bad guys exactly what to do to cheat. I know this problem. You learn if you when people hear about how people cheat, they learn good ways to cheat. So they always say, "Don't do this." So, hey, great idea! I'm going to do that. There was once a family. The father was a drunk. And the kids did everything they do as their father, but they couldn't take it. One day the kids are out in the market and they see a guy is drunk rolling around the street. Mamish vomit, disgusting. The guy is drunk as can be. It's a rachmanis to see the guy. The kids say, "This is a great idea. Quickly, let's get daddy." They run home. They get their father to come and show him, how
What it
debased
looks like.
what it looks like. The guy's so drunk. The father leans down and he whispers to the drunk. They lean into. What's he saying to the drunk? He says, "Where'd you get such good whiskey?" The thing is over here is the problem is if you teach people what they're not supposed to do, you teach them all the tricks. That's how you learn. So if you teach monetary law in public, you're teaching everybody how to cheat. So he says, but look what he said. So he said, he said, Olim Omar, if I teach it, it's woe to me. Why? I'm teaching the bad guys how to cheat. If I don't teach it and I don't show that we're wise to all the tricks, then the cheaters will say, "Ain't Tamei Chachamim Bekiyan." The Tamei Chachamim don't know what we do, and they'll feel bold enough to go out and cheat. So he said, "I don't know what to do." See, Bailo. So the rabbis went, "Oh, that was in the Brisa." So the Gemara wanted to know. He says, "No, Amra Lomar." Says, "No, it's the suspense is killing us." No, what did he do it? Did he teach it or not? What did he do in the end? Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, Amora, he taught it. Why? And what's the reason? Is because of this pasuk that he knew that he's allowed to tell him. You don't have to worry about it. Why? Because where the pasuk says, "He shoim darchei Hashem." The ways of Hashem are just. With tzaddikim yachobam poshim v'kashubam. The righteous people walk those ways of poshim v'kashubam, and the sinners they stumble down. So the same pathway. Everybody has free choice. Hey, listen, that can't be your problem. People who want to learn the right thing from what you teach will learn the right thing. People want to learn the wrong thing, you're right. Okay, that's not your problem. And even though they're going to learn from it, you don't have to. They're going to learn how to cheat better. You don't have to. You still have to teach the righteous people how not to do the wrong thing. Osasu, I was in New York late one evening, and my wife, she should live and be well. She has a lot of dietary restrictions, etc. And she had to do something with somebody. It was my job to make sure we'd gotten in late to find some food to bring back for the evening. We weren't staying at anybody's house. We were in the middle of traveling. So I figure I'll go out there. I'm looking for something. Finally, I found this one pizza shop left over. New York's not what you think it is. For kosher food, New York is not the city that never sleeps. For kosher food, it sleeps. So anyway, I find this one pizza shop that's open in the Midtown. So I run down there, and it's mamish just in time. And they're running out. And the truth is, I got the next to last pizza. I got it. I got the next to last pizza. Baruch Hashem. The last pizza's in the oven, and there's a guy online to get. He's supposed to get the pizza. A guy comes in. Listen to this. He says. They tell him, "Look, sorry, that's the last one." He says, "If you don't sell me that pizza, I'm going to go buy a tray foot next door. I'm going to go to the tray foot parlor and eat it." You hear this? He says to the guy. He says, "If you don't let me take the pizza, so I'm going to go buy a tray."
So you should have said, "Dude, isn't the hay?"
That guy, that's what the guy said to him. He said, "Yeah, you want to buy a tray pizza? Go buy a tray pizza. Give me a pizza, please."
The old Sid Caesar routine. Told his parents, "I'll hold my breath."
Yeah, what they said.
They said,
Well, there were some good Gordons, but a lot of the famous maskilim, the bad guys, were Gordons. A lot of the famous people who fought the rabbis, and they called themselves enlightened, and they wanted to destroy the Torah. Gordon was a family. There were good Gordons, but the Gordons, they named the streets after the bad ones. So
Gordon's the Hebrew one? Gordon?
No, Gordon was a European name, Gordon. But when they name
that.
the streets today after Gordon, they're naming after the bad guy.
Okay,
So usually,
Like Flash Gordon.
yeah. So one of the Gordons,
You're giving your age, Bobby.
so one of the Gordons is coming down the street. I think it was the Chavetz Chaim and Rav Chaim, maybe. I think, but it was a Chavetz Chaim. I think it was a Chaim. So they're walking down the street. They're learning, talking and learning. This and that. So the guy said, "Machlokas." machlokas, So everything's a machlokas, So actually, I told you there's two different stories. Actually, that's a good story. I'll tell you that another time. So he sees them. So oh no, I might be the same. He says everything machlokas. So Chavetz Chaim said not true. He said most of the shas is not a machlokas. So they keep walking for about 5 minutes, and then finally Chaim looks up. He says, "You're right." He reviewed the whole shas. But anyway, I think if it's not the same story at the same time. But anyway, so he says to them, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" So they were on the way to a funeral of a big Talmid Chacham. So maybe it's a separate story. But anyway, so he says, "Oh, maybe they'll bury me next to him." So they said, "Listen, you're not allowed to bury a Russian next to a tzaddik." They said to him, he says, "You're not going to tell me where I'm going to be buried when I die." He said, "Look, don't let it hold you back." They said, "It's okay, don't let it stop you." They were very sharp when Bialik met the Bircha Shmuel. Bircha Shmuel was a genius, ridiculous. His pictures are frightening. If you ever see his face, he was a genius. So Bialik met him. So Bialik says to him, he says, they say that if your brain were cut in two, it would make two Einsteins. He said, yeah, if they make chop me out of it, make 1,000 of you. He said, they were sharp. They were sharp.
That was George Bernard Shaw.
He said,
and a lady, I forgot her name, was extraordinarily beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And she said to George Bernard Shaw, "Sleep with me and we'll produce a child with your brains and my looks." And he said, "Madam, it's equally likely that the child would have your brains and my looks." That's the source.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Okay, Tanrabanan. Eno says a machak. Okay, tzira echas av. You're not going to make the scraper one side thick because it doesn't scrape well. Okay, and that's the buyer's going to want to use. But tzira echas katzar on one side skinny. Okay,
you're going back. We're up to Tanrabanan lo ta'as to Eza. Evel.
Mishpat.
You left that line out before, but you're now 5 lines past.
Oh, so I left that a line before. You can make one side thick, one side thin. Okay, why? Yeah, I left the line. I'm sorry. So now I said it. Okay, I'm Rabbi Yochanan. See, Mishamayim, we went back to fix it. I'm Rabbi Yochanan Zakai. I did all that. Right. Oh, that'll eat it. Now, Tanarabanan, yeah. So Sasu over Mishpat, but he see was Mishamayim, we went back to get the line. Tanarabanan. Lo tasso over mishpat b'mida mishkal u b'mesura. The pasuk says you can't pervert justice in mida, mishkal, and mesura. What is that? So mida is kaka. Medida is measuring ground, measuring land. Shelo yimdod, okay. Shelo yimdod le'echad b'mosachama, okay, le'echad b'mosach. Let's say the deal is you're going to give 10 measures to this guy and 10 measures to that guy. So you can't use one rope, okay, one rope in the winter, one rope in the one guy you measure in the winter, one guy you measure in the summer. Why? Because in the summer the rope contracts, so a measure of the rope is a smaller measure. In the winter the rope expands, so a measure is bigger. So you have to measure for both guys in the same season and not in two different seasons. Okay. Furthermore, b'mishkal, what does it mean that you can't cheat, you can't do the wrong perversion when it comes to weight? You cannot immerse your weights in salt because they get heavy, okay, and you're able to cheat the uchitu when it's heavier. Uchitu when it's heavier.
It's a different. The Rashbam and the Tosfos have different ones. One shrinks, the other side expands.
Yeah, but we said, but when it expands, who's cheating who? So the buyer is cheating. The buyer is cheating. The buyer is cheating the seller. Yeah, the buyer is cheating the seller. Yeah. B'mesura shelo yatiach, and when it comes to a liquid measure, you're not allowed to pour it and make it froth. Remember I told you before, the word hatacha means to make it froth, bubble up. Why? Because it looks like you poured it into the guy's thing. It looks like his thing is full, and it's not full. Okay, but kavachomer now, and it's a kavachomer. Why? Because a mesura is actually a known amount. A mesura shehi achas mishloshim mishisha balog. It's 1/36 of a log. So that maybe you'll get a hundredth of a log in froth. Okay, it's not that much. Okay, 1%. Even that amount, the Torah says you're not allowed to froth. Up kavachomer, certainly when you're going to use larger measures of a hin, a chatzi hin, shlishis hin, a third of hin, revius hin, a log, a chatzi log, and a log and a half log, or revius, okay, a quarter of a log, a chatzi toman, a half toman, okay, uchla and uchla. You shouldn't froth it. I'm Rav Yudam Rav. We didn't explain all the other ones, but anyway, they want to know. Rav. Also, Adam Shiisha Mida, Chaseri Tevatar Besa. Okay, you're not allowed to leave a mislabeled measure in your home. You're not allowed to keep it even. That's what you mentioned before. You can't even have it in your house. Even if you're using it for a urinal.
Chamber pot.
Yeah. Or the oven is actually for a urine. But for urine, the chamber pot's for the.
Well, I didn't go out in the cold. I used it.
So even a urinal, why? Because we're afraid you'll spill it out and use it. Hope not in my shop. Anyway, Amra Papa said, "Lo Amran alabaaso de la chasib." I said, "That's true. When can't you hold it? Only when there's no inspectors. But if there's inspectors that go around, if there's inspectors that go around and they put a mark that they put a seal or a mark on every measure that it's kosher, then you don't have to worry about it." Okay, the ilo chazi chasima lo shakol, because any buyer who doesn't see this, the weight of the seal won't accept it. Or even a place where they don't put a stamp on the measure, it's still not a problem to keep it. El the lo mahandise is only when there's no spot checkers. There's no spot checkers. Spot checkers in the market. If they spot check. And they just show up and they check. The guy's afraid. You don't have to worry about it. Below, but it's not true. No matter what. In all cases, you can't keep an inappropriate measure in your house. Why? Zimna the mikri better shmasas, mikri shakol. But sometimes it'll come out. It's already getting dark. Okay, or Erev Shabbos is getting dark. And what? And there's everybody's hurrying, and therefore nobody's going to pay attention, and therefore the guy's going to take the fake one and use it. And we'll call that a daf. Everyone have a wonderful day. Yeah, today my eyes are funny.
Erwin, how many times did you expect to come around?
About 5 or 6 lines in the bottom. Yeah, about
Sure, it's
5 or 6
Hi.
lines.
So what's in it's gonna tell us.
Yeah.
Yes, wait.
Hey.
You know that they're not, but you're using them every time that they're not getting. They take them away from.
It turns a little fast.
A friend of mine had a good got invested in a good business. They have in Europe. In Europe, they travel all through all these countries. So the truckers get they have a company credit card, to buy the gas for the company in the trucking. It's company credit card. But what do? They cheat. They bring along jerry cans.
Everything that must have been.
When they go to the
And they
station, they
fill up
use the
the
company
can
card.
as
They fill
well.
up the jerry cans. So what they do, so they figured out a way that the companies got all the gas stations to agree that they put a certain chip in the